In 1963, as John Lennon was performing to a packed crowd at Liverpool's Cavern club, an 8-year-old boy broke through security and handed him a crumpled letter that would stop the music cold and leave 300 young fans in stunned silence. What happened next revealed a side of the Beatles frontman that nobody expected to see, transforming not just that moment, but the lives of everyone in that room forever. But what was written in that letter that could move one of rock's toughest stars to tears in front of thousands of people? The year is 1963, and the basement of the Cavern Club feels like the centre of the universe. Brick walls slick with condensation trap the heat of 300 bodies pressed shoulder to shoulder, their collective breath creating a fog that dances in the harsh stage lights. The air buzzes with childhood wonder and innocent excitement, thick with anticipation. Above ground, Liverpool's industrial skyline stretches grey and endless. But down here in this underground temple of rock and roll, magic is about to happen. John Lennon stands at the edge of the makeshift stage, his Rickenbacker guitar catching the light as he surveys the sea of faces below. At 22, he's already learned to read a crowd like sheet music, and this afternoon's audience thrums with an energy that makes his skin prickle. Children in the front rows hold homemade drawings and carefully written letters, while younger ones in the back stand on tiptoes for a glimpse of their heroes. The Beatles have just released Please, Please Me, and it's climbing the charts faster than anyone dared hope. The club's low ceiling seems to press down on them all, creating an intimate cocoon where every breath, every heartbeat, every whispered word becomes amplified. Sweat beads on foreheads and upper lips, mixing salt with anticipation. The wooden stage creaks under the weight of amplifiers and drums, a sound that's become as familiar to the Beatles as their own heartbeats. This venue has been their proving ground, their launching pad, their home away from home for countless nights. But this afternoon is special, a rare matinee performance for Liverpool's youngest fans, children who've been saving their pocket money for tickets and practicing Beatles songs in school playgrounds. Paul adjusts his bass strap and catches John's eye, that familiar spark of mischief passing between them like electricity jumping between live wires. George quietly tunes his guitar, lost in his own world of musical precision, his fingers moving across the strings with the delicate touch of a craftsman perfecting his art. Meanwhile, Ringo settles behind his drum kit like a captain taking the helm of a ship about to sail into uncharted waters. They've played this venue dozens of times, but this afternoon feels different. There's electricity in the air that goes beyond the usual pre-show excitement, a tension that makes John's fingers twitch against his guitar strings. Young voices begin chanting their names, creating a chorus of pure joy that fills the venue with infectious energy. Beatles, Beatles, Beatles. The sound builds and crashes like waves against the club's low ceiling, and John feels that familiar rush of power and responsibility that comes with being the focal point of so much raw emotion and expectation. But as John scans the crowd one more time before they begin, his eyes catch something that makes him pause. Near the stage, partially hidden behind a group of excited children, stands a small figure that doesn't quite belong, an 8-year-old boy clutching something against his chest with both hands, his face pale and serious among the beaming faces surrounding him. The child's presence strikes an odd note in the symphony of childhood joy, like a single worried face in a sea of smiles. Something extraordinary is about to unfold in this sweat-soaked basement, transforming an ordinary Tuesday afternoon in Liverpool into a moment that lives forever. As the energy builds around him, John carries invisible weight that the crowd cannot see. Behind the confident smile and razor-sharp wit that have made him a sensation, exhaustion pulls at his bones like gravity. The past 18 months have been a whirlwind of recording sessions, television appearances, and performances that blur together in a haze of screaming crowds and blinding lights. Success, it turns out, is a demanding master that never sleeps, never rests, and never asks if you're ready for what comes next. The weight of sudden fame sits heavy on shoulders that are still learning how to carry such an impossible burden. Just yesterday, Aunt Mimi cornered him in her Mendip's kitchen, her disapproval cutting deeper than any critic's review could ever hope to reach. "This music business is just a phase, John," she'd said, polishing her good china with aggressive precision, each circular motion a rebuke to his chosen path. "You can't build a life on all this screaming and carrying on. What happens when the novelty wears off?" Her words echo in his mind even now, mixing uneasily with the adoration of the crowd before him. The woman who raised him after his mother's tragic death sees his greatest triumph as his greatest mistake, and that knowledge sits in his chest like a stone. The relentless pace of their rising fame has left all four Beatles running on fumes and adrenaline, their youthful energy stretched thin as wire. They've been performing almost every night for months, travelling between cities in cramped vans that smell of cigarettes and stale sandwiches, surviving on truck stop food and whatever sleep they can steal between shows. Paul's usually boundless energy shows cracks around the edges, manifesting in moments of uncharacteristic irritability. George has developed a persistent cough from the smoke-filled venues, while even Ringo's steady demeanour wavers when he thinks no one is looking. But it's the weight of expectation that presses heaviest on John's shoulders this afternoon, an invisible crown that grows heavier with each passing day. Every song they play, every joke he makes between numbers, every gesture toward the crowd carries the pressure of living up to their growing legend. The young fans see John Lennon the rock star, the confident frontman who can do no wrong, whose every word is magic and every movement is poetry. They don't see the 22-year-old who sometimes lies awake at 3 a.m, staring at unfamiliar hotel room ceilings, wondering if he deserves any of this, if he's fooling everyone, including himself. As they launch into Love Me Do, John's voice carries its usual charm and confidence, but Paul notices the slight tremor in his harmony, the way his friend's eyes don't quite meet the crowd's gaze with their usual boldness. The song flows around them like water, familiar and comforting as an old friend's embrace, but underneath the polished performance runs an undercurrent of something rawer, more vulnerable than their audiences ever see. The children sing along with every word, their pure voices creating a chorus of innocence that both delights and humbles the 4 young men on stage. This afternoon, more than ever, John feels himself floating slightly outside the experience, watching it happen rather than fully inhabiting it, as if he's observing his own life through thick glass. The familiar melody of their next number begins, but movement near the stage catches John's peripheral vision. A tiny figure breaks free from the crowd of children, moving with desperate determination toward the front. Security guards stationed around the perimeter shift into action, their trained eyes tracking the disruption, but something about the movement feels different from the usual fan rush. This isn't the frenzied charge of an overzealous admirer seeking a touch or a photograph. The boy can't be more than 8 years old, his fragile form nearly swallowed by the crowd of bodies around him. Tears stream down his pale cheeks, catching the blazing spotlights as he pushes through legs and around obstacles with single-minded purpose. In his quivering fingers, he clutches a crumpled piece of paper against his chest like a precious relic, his knuckles white with the intensity of his grip. The usual wonder and delight that radiates from young fans is nowhere to be found in his expression, replaced instead by something far more urgent and heartbreaking. John's fingers continue moving across his guitar strings, muscle memory carrying the melody forward, but his attention fractures as he watches the scene unfold below. The boy stumbles, recovers, and keeps pushing forward with a determination that seems impossible for someone so young. Other children notice the disruption, some instinctively stepping aside to help their peer, others unconsciously moving with the music, lost in their own beatific trances. Paul catches the shift in John's focus and follows his gaze, his own voice wavering slightly as he processes what he's seeing. George continues playing, but his eyes dart between his fretboard and the unfolding drama, while Ringo's steady beat provides the only constant in a moment that feels increasingly surreal. The professional in all of them knows they should keep playing, should maintain the energy and connection with their audience, but something primal and human overrides their performer instincts. The boy reaches the stage edge just as security converges on his position. Large hands reach down to lift him away, to restore order to the chaos, but the child's desperate cry cuts through the music like a knife through silk. "Please!" The word carries such raw anguish that it stops John's strumming entirely. His hand freezes above the strings, creating a moment of silence that spreads like ripples across water. The other Beatles follow his lead, their instruments falling quiet one by one, until only the confused murmur of the crowd fills the space. The crowd of children who'd been singing along moments before now stand in bewildered silence, their collective voice reduced to whispers and shuffling feet. The boy extends the letter toward the stage with both hands, nervous energy radiating from his tiny frame, exhaustion evident from his journey through the crowd. John sets his guitar against its stand and moves to the edge of the stage, his rock star persona sliding away like a discarded coat. The distance between performer and audience, between idol and supplicant, collapses in an instant. The bright stage beams illuminate the tears on the child's face. And John sees not a fan seeking attention, but a young child carrying a burden too heavy for his narrow shoulders. The moment stretches endlessly, suspended between the ordinary world of rock concerts and an unprecedented moment both profound and human. Without a word, John drops to one knee at the very edge of the stage, bringing himself down to the child's eye level. The gesture transforms the entire atmosphere of the club, turning a concert venue into something resembling a church, sacred and hushed. His calloused fingers, shaped by years of guitar playing and hardened by working-class roots, reach out with infinite gentleness to accept the crumpled letter from the boy's unsteady grip. The paper feels warm and slightly damp from tears and desperate clutching. The silence in the Cavern Club becomes absolute as John unfolds the letter, his eyes moving across handwritten words that seem to burn themselves into his consciousness. The young audience holds its collective breath, sensing that they're witnessing something far beyond entertainment, events that reach the deepest chambers of the human heart. Paul, George and Ringo move closer, forming a protective semicircle around their friend and the child, their instruments forgotten. The letter tells a story that breaks John's heart into 1,000 pieces and then somehow makes it larger than before. The boy's older sister lies in Liverpool Children's Hospital, fighting a battle that 8-year-olds shouldn't have to understand. She's asked for only one thing, written in her own shaky handwriting at the bottom of her brother's careful printing: to meet John Lennon before she goes to sleep forever. The words swim slightly as John's eyes fill with tears he doesn't try to hide. For a moment that stretches like eternity, John Lennon, the rock star, ceases to exist entirely. In his place kneels a young man who remembers his own childhood fears and losses, who understands that sometimes the distance between stage and audience is nothing compared to the distance between life and death. The tough exterior he's cultivated, the sharp wit and rebellious image that have made him famous, melt away completely. John reaches into his jacket pocket and withdraws his harmonica, the same one he's used on recordings that will outlive them all. The silver instrument catches the light as he presses it into the boy's tiny palm, closing the child's fingers around it with both of his own hands. "Tell your sister," he whispers, his Liverpool accent thick with emotion, "that John Lennon says she's the bravest girl in the world, and this harmonica is going to help her dreams come true." The boy's face transforms, tears of desperation becoming tears of joy and disbelief. He clutches the harmonica like a talisman, and when he looks up at John, something passes between them that transcends fame and fandom entirely. It's a moment of pure human connection, of one soul recognizing the profound need of another and responding without hesitation or calculation. The children begin to understand what they've witnessed, and instead of cheering or applause, a profound silence continues to blanket the room. Many young eyes fill with tears, recognizing that they've seen something precious and rare, a moment when celebrity revealed itself to be simply humanity in brighter lights. That harmonica would indeed find its way to a hospital bed, where it would bring comfort to a little girl and her family during their darkest hours. And though the Beatles would go on to conquer the world, those who were present that night would always remember the moment when John Lennon showed them that the greatest performances happen, not when we play our roles perfectly, but when we step out of them entirely to answer love's call.